Hi there, these comments are for 0966, and I am Michael Buckoff, your English language program instructor here at California State University, San Bernardino. And we're just not exactly where we need to be right now. I think you wrote about, let me take a look at it right now, give me a second. I'm going to put you at 2.5 out of 5. 17 points out of 30 or 70 points out of 100. So if I look at what you wrote here, which is this, the word count is 167 words. Now, if we compare this to the model, let's take a look at this. So this is 460 words. So you have and you had over 1 hour to write this thing. It's not like I only gave you 20 minutes. The TOEFL will only give you 20 minutes to do this. I gave you at least 3 times more time than that. You were able to listen to the lecture several times. However, you really didn't finish this writing project. Let's take a look at what you wrote, and then I'm going to make some suggestions. Okay, so you have no introduction. You just say, according to the reading, the author expresses social networks are creating a more repressed American society. Social networks are a false sense of relationship because they take away the face-to-face interaction. Yes, that is the first important point in the reading. You say facial expression, intonation, sentence rhythm are very important in society. However, social networks have taken away these methods. Which is true, right? And that's kind of what the reading is saying. You say friendship has changed negatively by simply logging on to a website rather than being built over time and interaction. You mean rather than building friendships over time, but you didn't say that. You say many users addicted social networks and these become the primary activities or actions of the day. You're not spending, if you want to use chunking means you're expressing all 3 main points of the reading in one paragraph. Then you're putting all 3 points of the listening in another paragraph. You got to do more than what you're doing. You say, according to the lecture, the speaker argues with the reading. Technology changes daily life. For some jobs, such as soldiers, housewife, and president, can communicate through internet. Provide communication between town or people in the country all over the world. Make friend doesn't mean have to meet. Many years ago, when we had pen friends, we never met each other either. Addiction can be redefined as a habit. For mother, teenagers, even politicians, using social networks can affect. The problem is we don't know how this relates to this information in the reading. You're not showing explicitly what the relationship is. Okay, so this is why I'm putting you at a score of 2.5. It says here in the rubric, you have not demonstrated an understanding of how the information in the lecture is connected to the information in the reading passage. That's a big problem right now with you. Now, also, you have significant difficulty with language, or you have left out important ideas from the lecture. Yes. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of grammar correction in your essay. It's not that needed because you really need to restructure. In fact, your 160 words needs to be developed into maybe 350 to 450 words, and that would be a more complete, accurate response so we can kind of really understand what the relationship is. Okay, based on your structure, here is a model essay which also follows explaining the 3 reading points in one paragraph and then explaining the 3 listening points in another. The problem is, if you want to use the chunking, you have to be very, very careful and very explicit in showing in the lecture how that information is different from the information you just mentioned. Remember with the Mark Twain essay, that one that's kind of difficult to read, he talked about what the river meant to him as a novice. And he went over like 7 different things, starting with the sunset and ending up with the old dead tree. So in the next paragraph, when he talked about what the river meant to him as a steamboat pilot, he would say something like, if that sunset scene had been repeated, I would have looked upon it and said that that means we'll have wind tomorrow. Or that floating log means the river is rising. So he referred back to what he already mentioned, and then he showed what that meant to him now as a pilot. So when we went to your second paragraph, you just said that the speaker argues with the reading, but you're not really showing how this information, technology changes daily life for some jobs such as soldiers, housewives, and presidents. How is this information different from what you've already said? That's what you need to try to show. So what does that look like? Let's see. According to the reading passage, the author believes social networks take away face-to-face interaction, create a false sense of friendship, and cause many users to become addicted. However, the speaker in the listening passage casts doubt on each of these claims. So what just happened here? In the introduction, we're explaining how the reading and the lecture are connected, and that's why I use the word however here. Okay, now let's take a look at the next paragraph. The author in the reading claims that social networks take away the face-to-face interaction. In the past, people used to spend time developing and maintaining friendships by doing things together and by talking. The way that these people looked and how they talked to each other was essential toward building the friendships. Now these valuable friendships are being replaced by social networks, argues the author. Now what you didn't do, which is important, you need to have some transition words here to show the 3 points in the reading passage. So in addition, the author asserts that social networks create a false sense of friendship among their users in the sense that users simply send pictures and messages to others online. These types of false friendships, reports the author, have defined what it means to be friends negatively. So what do we do here? In between, in addition, and before finally, we're simply talking about the second point in the reading. Now, if I go up to what you did, it's hard to figure out which point is the first point in the reading, which one is the second point in the reading, and which one is the third point of the reading. I don't know. Why? Because you have no transition words to help structure each of these points. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Finally, social networks, according to the author, cause users to become addicted. In fact, the author argues that many users become obsessed with updating their profiles and posting pictures that these users are spending a lot of time online instead of building long-lasting friendships with interaction. In fact, these social network activities are causing many users to become less involved with other people in society, concludes the author. And there we go. So here we have explained all 3 important points in the reading passage, and we separated each one by saying in addition and then finally. And each time we said things like the author asserts, we say according to the author, or concludes the author. So we're using several different voice markers within that paragraph to acknowledge the author in the reading passage. Now, the most important point is the lecture. If you choose to use chunking, you need to show an explicit kind of connection here. So let's take a look at how we do that. On the other hand, the speaker in the lecture disagrees with each of the assertions mentioned in the reading passage. How about that for a topic sentence? Then we say first of all. Then we say second of all. And then we'll get to the last point here in just a minute. Oh, here, finally. You see this? So now I'm separating all 3 points in the lecture with transition words. In this case, I use first of all, second of all, and then finally. Okay, first of all, in response to the idea that social networks eliminate social interaction, this is what you did not do. The first thing we're doing is we're tying this information back to what we've already said. And then we say, the speaker claims that in the past, society used letter writing as a way to communicate. Similarly, the speaker argues that social networks operate. Maybe if we say similar manner, we don't have to do that. We can say the speaker argues that social networks operate in a similar manner. Second of all, this is important. Again, we're stating something that we've already mentioned from the previous paragraph. Second of all, although the author believes that social networks have affected friendships negatively, the speaker in the listening passage believes that the traditional places to meet have changed due to the internet. For example, in the past, people used to send letters to meet in diners or drive-in movie theaters to socialize. Now, according to the author, social networks provide a valuable way for people to meet in a modern world. Okay, let's take a look at this. Finally, the speaker rejects the notion that social networks, as the author claims, are addictive. You see what we're saying here? The notion that social networks, as the author claims, are addictive. This was already mentioned in the previous paragraph. So when we're doing the third point in the lecture, we need to juxtapose that with the point already mentioned in the reading. Let's read that one more time. Finally, the speaker rejects the notion that social networks, as the author claims, are addictive. In fact, according to the speaker, social networks shape what people do and how long they spend doing it daily. Since social networks are part of what is normal in society, these necessary networks should not be viewed as addictive. Indeed, change this to speaker. The speaker claims those who do not use social networks are the ones who should be considered abnormal, since these people refuse to participate in these advanced societal ways of communication. And then we have, in conclusion, both the author and the speaker discuss the advantages and disadvantages of social networks on society. Right? So with yours, you just didn't quite make the connections, the required connections that you needed to make. And the best advice I can give you is, it's better for you, I think, I would not use chunking organization on the final exam. You're not able to do that. You don't do a good enough job with it. It'll be easier for you if you use sequencing. That means in the second body paragraph, you'll state only the reading point 1 along with listening point 1. That's it. Then in the next body paragraph, you'll talk about reading point 2 along with listening point 2. And then in the final body paragraph, you'll talk about reading point 3 with listening point 3. That's going to be easier for you to handle. The way you're doing it here is very difficult unless you can do this. If you think you can do this, then use this organization for the final exam. All right, so thank you for doing the writing practice test. The best advice I can give you is to simply practice more integrated writing between now and the final exam. That means maybe this next week, you might try to do 2 to 3 practice tests, maybe 2 to 3 practice tests the next week, send them to me for scoring, and I'll give you a grade. I think the more you practice, the better you will get with this kind of writing, and you will figure it out eventually. But right now, you have not figured it out. You need to get faster. You need to think faster. You need to have a better, more efficient system of taking notes. And I think as you practice, you will become more and more efficient. Thank you for completing this writing assignment.